Okay, let's tackle the pattern of this thing. Again, like last time, I'm gonna grab my miniature bodice blocks. So we have the front and we have the back. And the first thing to do is manipulate the darts out of the way. And I'm gonna fast forward this now. And if you're interested in how to do it in detail, check out the video that I linked in the description box to see how I've done it. Right, so we have our bodice block manipulated with no darts, and this is the base that we're going to use for the dress. I'm going to use the edge of my piece of paper and place the front bodice onto that edge, and then I'm going to start trace it. So the neck hole, the shoulder, the armhole, and the side seam. And up next, we need to determine how long we want our skirt to be. So because this is a mini dress, I opted for a total length from the nape of the neck to the end of the dress of 85 centimeters. And I then cut it back once I tried on the dress to the perfect length. So what you will have to do is to take the measurement that you want from the nape of the neck to how long you want your dress to be. So I'm gonna say that this is about 80 centimeters. I'm then going to draw a line perpendicular to the edge of my piece of paper. And on that line, I'm going to measure how wide I want my front skirt to be. So in my case, I opted for a width of 60 centimeters in the front skirt in total, which means that from this point, we would have to measure about 35 centimeters to the side to create an equal skirt on both ends, to create equal width. I'm then going to connect my waist point to the point that we've just created. Now this looks a bit odd, so what we have to do is we have to lift the side seam by about 2 centimeters and create a bit of a curve down here to make sure that the skirt looks straight when you actually wear it, something like this. So this is the front of our dress. Now we have to think about all of the details in the dress. For example, where do we want the color blocking to begin? Because in this case, in this dress, we have a white top and the burgundy bottom of the dress. So what I opted for is I measured from the nape of my neck to the apex of my bust line, which let's say was about here, and then I just, eyeballed a point in my armhole that I thought would look nice to create this V shape, like so. So this is basically all we need for the pattern. This is where later the piping is going to go in. The top here is the white scuba and the bottom is the burgundy scuba. And that's our front. The only thing that you have to keep in mind is when you cut out these pieces, the burgundy part, the lower part of the dress, or whatever color you choose, needs to be cut on a fold. However, the top of the dress doesn't need to be cut on a fold. You will have to add a seam allowance of about 3 centimeters here, because this is where you will later add the zip. You basically now repeat the exact same steps with the back of your dress, and I'm going to quickly do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut out the front of the dress, and then I'm going to use this to create the pattern for the back skirt. And I'm going to place it so that the shoulder and the side seams align roughly, and also making sure that the center front is flush with the center back. And now I'm going to trace the skirt because the skirt is identical in the back and in the front. However, I'm going to cut it so that there's a little bit more length in the back than there is in the front, because I think that makes it a little bit more comfortable. And then we're going to repeat the same steps as we did with the front to measure out where we want the white part, the white top in the back to be. Now what I did is I placed my front piece so that I could make sure that the seam hits in the same spot in the front and in the back in the armhole, and then I decided to go a little bit lower in the center back to create again this V shape. And here both of these pieces are going to be cut on a fold because there is no zip in the back. So we have our front and we have our back pieces. What you will have to keep in mind is we are working with stretchy fabric, so that is why usually you won't necessarily need a dart. However, if you're somebody with like a more opulent bust than me, I'm generally a little bit more flat in front, you will have to think about adding a dart to give yourself some space and to make sure that the dress is not creasing or warping in a weird way. And in this dress, in this pattern, the ideal spot to add a dart would probably be in this area where you have the piping seam. So what you would do is you would just add a dart here like so and sew that together so you create more of a 3D front piece. Right, so that's the front and the back sorted. What we will also need is a sleeve. So for the sleeve, what I have been doing a lot is I've just grabbed a piece of paper or craft paper in your case, because you are going to create this pattern to scale, is I fold it like this so I can work on the fold to create a symmetrical pattern. So what you will do is you start with the apex of your shoulder, just mark a random mark on your piece of paper, and then up next you will want to measure from the apex of your shoulder down to where your armpit stops, and that's your next line. The line after that is from where your armpit stops to where your elbow starts. Create another line, and then the last line is where you want your sleeve to end, around your wrist. Create another line there. You will need 4 lines in total. You then take your measuring tape and measure around the widest part of your upper arm and divide that by half and mark it on this first line. You then take your measuring tape again, measure the circumference of your elbow, take the half of that, and then add 2 centimeters or 2 to 3 centimeters for comfort and measure it on this line. And that's what we do for now. I'm going to show you the rest later. Now we're going to connect these spots. First, a straight line from your armpit to your elbow, and then you're going to create a nice S curve like so to the apex of your shoulder. I'm now going to cut this out because the rest we won't want to do on the fold. I'm going to cut it like so, then let me pivot it over like this because we do have a little bit of a bell sleeve going on. So that's the first step for our sleeve. Now I created a sleeve that tilts forward a little bit. It's asymmetrical. So what you want to do is you want to mark the front of your sleeve with 2 notches here and here. You're also going to do that in your real life cutout piece. I then basically elongated this line down like so, and then I measured how long this line was and transferred it over to this line like so. I hope that makes sense. You see it? Hopefully it does. And this is how the sleeve goes. We are then going to add a little bit of a more natural curve down here. I'm going to cut it out so you have a better understanding of what it looks like. So this is our sleeve. So this is the front, and that's going to look in the front of your dress. And when you sew it together, you fold it together like so, and you align these seams. When you align all of this, you're gonna have a nice sleeve with a bit of a width going on. And depending on how wide you want your belt to be, how voluminous you want your belt to be, you could also just take this pattern, add a few cuts here, like so. Place it on another piece of paper and then start to spread out these pieces like so. And then you could trace this and cut it out, and then you have even more width in your sleeve. So we have the front, we have the back, we have the sleeve, and the last thing we need to create is the collar, which is the easiest part because the collar is basically just a rectangle. What you do is you grab your measuring tape, and then you're going to measure the circumference of your front to your back shoulder points in your neckline. So measure this distance and then double it, because obviously you're gonna have 2 pieces of each, and that is your neck circumference. You then take your neck circumference, say for me, I believe if I remember correctly, it was about 45 centimeters. I'm gonna draw an arbitrary line here because I don't actually have a minimized measuring tape here, so it would fit. I could probably try to guess. So say this is okay, 1.5 and 1.5. Yeah, I'm gonna make this 6 centimeters of a rectangle. And what's important is to keep in mind that you need to add a fold here. So say you want a 4 centimeter high standing collar, you're gonna then add just a guiding line here for 4 centimeters, and then you're gonna add another line here for the full double width of this thing. I'm gonna cut it out to give you a better understanding of what I mean. We have a 45 by 8 centimeter piece in real life here. And now in real life, I would fold this is very small, to create my standing collar. So this would then go in here. Obviously, this is a full-on, not half piece. This is your collar, while this is all on the half. So we have front and back of the main dress, we have the sleeve, and we have the collar piece. And that, my friends, is our pattern.